Dr. Greg Eckert is he brings you the horns that have passed. He's my dentist, but Dr. Eckert, a very busy guy. In addition to being the best dentist and cosmetic artist in all of Texas, right here off far west in central Austin, he also is one of the co-founders of the Brainvault orthotic, which helps minimize the effect of concussions and the possibility of concussions. And the chief brain scientist and science officer, the Brainvault chief science officer, is with us. He's right here in Austin, Texas. Mark Strickland. Mark is an expert. How are you, Mark? Welcome back to the show, by the way.
Oh, good morning. Thank you. Nice to be here.
Now, I hear you were early this morning already on a conversation with some scientists from Harvard. Is that right?
Well, yeah, I do once a month the Harvard orofacial rounds, concussion management, orofacial pain rounds are done from early, so 7:30 to 8:30. So I join those every month.
Nice. Okay.
They're very good.
Very good.
The world's experts on concussion management and orofacial pain. So it's good stuff.
Well, and we're going to get into more of the nitty-gritty science of the Brainvault and why the jaw and the mandible and the alignment of all that is so important to preventing concussions as people are putting pads on helmets and things. You guys have, I think, found the secret sauce potentially, and I know your research studies have backed it up. But what did you see from the Arch Manning hit? What led to the concussion that you saw when he's in the protocol now, which we're going to talk about? What, for our audience, what did you see from a neuroscience perspective? What's the science of what happened to Arch on that play in overtime?
Well, it's a shame that it was a missed call.
Yes.
Point that out. As a UT fan, I'm just going to say that. But he was hit in the back of the head, worst place you can hit, either from the side or in the back, and then that causes a rapid rotational head event where the head snaps around and bounces off the turf, and then it essentially rattles the brain. So what we know that happens is it's a trauma to the center portion of the brain that causes it's a shearing effect, and it literally causes a separation of the cerebri, meaning the two lobes of the brain, and that's what results in the cognitive deficit. So we saw him get up. His balance was poor. His gait was altered. He needed help to get to the sideline. I mean, all of those are just classic signs for a brain event, for a concussive event. So worrisome. He's went immediately, and according to the NCAA protocol, he has to be removed from the field, and then he has to go into a concussion protocol and management, and there's a specific process that has to be completed before he can return to play.
So, I'll be the layman. I am a layman on this, obviously. You say shearing of the two lobes of the brain. Would that be shearing meaning like pulling? Like if you pull the muscles in your ankle, it's going to hurt. If you pull the muscles in your knee or the ligaments in your knee or your ankle, it's going to hurt. Is that the kind of the effect you're talking about? Yeah. That there's a stretching of that?
Yes, you can sort of think of it like that. There's a membrane that holds the two hemispheres of your brain together. It's called the falx cerebri. And what we understand about current understanding of concussion management is not the old way we used to think about it, where the brain sloshes around. Your head goes forward, brain goes backwards, and then the reverse happens, and your brain hits the inside of your skull, and it causes a bruising effect. That's really not current conceptual thinking in concussion management. What we know now is that the hemispheres of the brain are held together. You could think of it like a ligament. There's a structure called the falx that attaches both sides of the brain together. And on the bottom of the lobes of the brain, you have the corpus callosum, which is just basically an electrical conduit that goes from one side of the brain to the other. It's how one side of the brain connects to and communicates with the other. So what we know now is that with rotational head events, rapid head events, there's a shearing effect or stretching event to that falx, to that membrane that holds the two lobes of the brain together. And when that weakens, when it becomes damaged, that's when we see a loss of that electrical conductivity between one side of the brain and the other, which is really what results in the dementia signs, either loss of vestibular balance, we see rapid eye movements and those types of things, and that's due to that rotational head event.
Okay, and that's what we saw with Arch, and we see all too often in football. What you aren't diagnosing Arch and be able to talk to him, but in your history on this, what's best case? What does it mean to clear the protocols, and what would have to happen for Arch to be able to play on Saturday?
Yeah, well, this is going to be an unfortunate answer, but it could be a very short, or it can be as long as is necessary. Each player is assessed not based upon timelines so much, but there's certain steps that they have to go through. So, and each one is individual. It's even different. The protocols even change from male to female. So. He has to follow. There's 6 steps. There's going to be the protocol requires six individual steps, and there's 2 parts of that. One is called return to play. The other is called return to learn. So your body may actually recover faster because you have ingrained reflexes that would allow you to do things like throw a football, catch a football, run steps, but being able to return to cognitive function, to concentrate, focus, learn, those sometimes are asymmetrical. So the first 6 things that have to happen, and these are generally the minimalist would say that each of these 6 steps have to have at least 24 hours to complete. That would be best option, where you have to rest the brain first. For 24 hours, you do nothing. So you just rest the brain, and then you reevaluate it to make sure that your symptoms are improving. Then you engage in light aerobic exercise. That could mean stationary bike, walking, gently on a treadmill. And then with that type of exercise, they add cognitive challenges. So they're going to ask you questions. They're going to make you think while you're doing exercise. And then you progress to sports-specific exercise. So for football, clearly that would be agility drills, angular acceleration, different things, while they're then adding cognitive challenges. Can you run a play? Can you talk to me about a play? Could you read a defense while you're doing these sport-specific exercises? Then you're generally cleared to enter non-contact practice. So that means you could go through all the drills like you would normally go through in a football practice, but no contact. If you've completed that within 24 hours, then they'll return you to full contact practice, and you're monitored very closely. And that generally means you don't take any hits. That's when you see a quarterback in practice with a red vest on or something like that to try to minimize the amount of blows or he falls to the ground. And then finally, you're cleared to go back into unrestricted return to full play. But again, you have to pass each of those steps. Each of those benchmarks have to be mastered before they'll allow you to move into the next phase. And that could be, again, it could be 24 hours, it could be 72 hours. It's purely dependent on how the athlete responds and how bad the injury was. Once you've completed all of that, then you have to go into a return, or they're done side by side, but you're in a return to learning protocol. Return to learning means they give you brain challenges, thinking challenges. Can you think your way out of a box? What does that look like? And so those things may be asymmetric. Again, you may go through the return to play protocol nicely, but if you can't do math at the end of that period, they're still not going to allow you to return to the field. So these things are very specific, and colleges like University of Texas has to follow those protocols in a pretty stringent way, regardless of financial stressors and how badly we all want him to get back on the field. We have to care about the athlete more than anything else, so that he's got longevity.
100%. Mark Strickland is with us, the Brainvault Chief Science Officer, and talk about Arch Manning and what he has to go through. It's why Sark was asked again this, on Monday, hey, any more on Arch? He's like, no, look, that's up to the doctors. That's up to the. When they say he's clear to play, I'll put him back on the field to be clear to play. I'm not involved in that, and he's not just saying that to be evasive. He's not, as Mark Strickland just laid out for you. Obviously, we'd all like him to play, but. Let me ask you this. One of the things that's common in my mind, I say it, and maybe I'm wrong, the whole idea that once you have one, you're more susceptible to future concussions, and then if you do rush it back and don't go through all these rigorous protocols, you're certainly more prone to a second event. Is that true? Yes. The trauma to the brain is cumulative, so you can heal completely if what you just said is factual. In other words, they go through the process painstakingly slow, and I do mean painstakingly because we're all wanting to get back on the field. But they have to complete each part of the protocol, and then once they've done that, we don't really have a one-to-one that says, okay, you had a concussion, are you more likely to have another concussion, and would that concussion event necessarily be worse?
there's really no evidence to that effect. But look at Tua, I mean,
right.
Tagovailoa. I mean, he's had, 6 concussions? I mean, that you worry about that, because now you're just talking about just trauma to the brain, and, you don't want to be a mush brain when you're in your 40s. So yeah, in college football, he got banged. He's been getting banged around this year. There's just no doubt about it. So, but that doesn't mean necessarily that each additional concussive event is going to more likely lead to permanent damage to his brain. As long as those protocols are followed rigorously, he should be okay.
Okay, well, that's great to hear, and that's for everybody out there. Any parent of anybody that plays a collision sport, and tell folks, I always want to ask you with Mark Strickland here, from the science side, why it's patented technology, the Brainvault mouthguard and orthotic. Why does it work, and how does it minimize the effects of concussions that you guys have discovered through long research studies?
Yeah, so, basically everyone understands that not just to protect the teeth, but, we wear orthotic appliances, so a mouth guard, when you play football. It's also been demonstrated that when you clench into a mouth guard, it causes an increase, an uptake, essentially, in your central nervous system. It causes you to brace. So you just like when you lift a heavy weight and you Valsalva, you clench your teeth. And that's what happens when you bite into a mouth guard. However, that process can be dramatically improved. By moving the mandible into a particular position, it does a lot of things. So if you think just for a moment to try to make this simple, the mandible and the head are inversely proportional. So as my jaw comes forward, my head moves back in space. We all know, we've all heard and seen and have talked about the orthostatic position. That means essentially the simple explanation of that is don't drop your head and hit with the crown of your helmet. Don't lead with the crown of your helmet, because it can lead to spine injury. Well, that's because of a couple of things. The angle of the blow, 1, and 2, the loss of curvature of your spine. So the orthostatic position is when we're tall in space, we've got a nice lordotic or a reverse curve in the neck, a kyphotic curve or a normal curve in the thoracic spine, and then that reverse curve again in the lumbar spine. And we're standing up straight, we're nice and tall, our sternum is tall, our head is back. By moving the mandible forward, we can actually enhance that position. So we move the spine into a more orthostatic position, which again cushions a blow, right? And also keeps your head up tall. We heard, lead with your face mask, not with the top of your head. So number one, by moving the mandible in space, we improve that contact position. Number two, there is, dependent upon the position of the mandible, there's a proportional relationship to how quickly the muscles in the neck fire. So we can increase and enhance an immediate firing of the muscles in the cervical spine, lower and upper cervical spine, to brace the head in space. So essentially, again, if the head is braced in space by increasing that neck tone and tension, it's going to limit the amount of movement that occurs in the brain based upon a contact with either a helmet or the ground. So you can essentially stabilize the brain position by increasing neck strength. And that's really what the Brainvault does. And it took many, many, many iterations. I loved your introduction of Dr. Eckert, because he's one of my dearest friends, and he's an absolutely brilliant dentist. And we've been working on this concept. He and I have been working together to treat patients with orofacial pain and TMJ disorders for 20 years. And he had this, no pun intended, this brainchild of an idea that, hey, we know what these relationships are. What if we created this position and then tested it? So we've done that twice. We've got a beautiful study with Texas State University with a manuscript that should be submitted Monday. Again, another manuscript, and then we just went down to Texas A&M and they're doing a double-blinded study. That's the top sports performance lab in the United States. No shade on Texas, because I love Texas, but the folks at Texas A&M really know what they're doing. Dr. Rakeman and his team down there. So Dr. Eckert and I went down there and we started the protocol for a fully double-blinded study to demonstrate exactly what I just explained. So we're really excited about that. We're really excited about what this can mean for increasing neck tension strength on the field and how that would relate to concussion mitigation.
Well, that's what it's all about, helping people that play contact sports. They want to play them. They want to be healthier. And right now, Arch Manning needs to stick to those protocols and not worry about trying to play, as Mark Strickland just laid out. Mark, we appreciate it whenever we need you, man. That's unfortunately, we're having to talk about it with a Longhorn quarterback and a young player, but at the same time, it's great information. Brainvault.com is the website. If your interest has been piqued, it should be. Go see the research, and it's all there. And everything he just said in a very easy to absorb form. If you have young people that are playing sports, cheerleaders, football players, rugby players, lacrosse, go check it out and learn more about the Brainvault. But obviously, we just learned more about Arch Manning and concussions and what's actually happening in the inside the skull there. Mark Strickland, thank you. We appreciate it very, very much.
Thanks, Mark.
You're very welcome. My pleasure. Have a nice day. All
right, there you go. That's perfect. This says, can you address why that was not called for targeting? I'm watching it again. Well, Sark they said it to the SEC league office and the officials. It was a bang-bang play, but yes, he certainly put the crown of his helmet in the back of his head, which is illegal. I don't know the answer to why they didn't call it targeting or even go upstairs and look at it, but seemed pretty obvious in real time.